Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. Time for another edition of the RTI Lowdown. It's been a while. We took a little break. It's kind of, it's the silly season. So it's been about 4 weeks since we've done one of these, but we figured it'd be good to come back and talk because, boy, we have a lot to cover tonight. It's a big show. But first, before we get going, I want to say hello to my co-host, one of On 3 Sports' finest, Chris Lowe. CeeLo, how you been, man?
It's been great, Bob. It's been a week or so, or a couple of weeks since we've done this show, but it's always good to get back. But no, it's been a good summer. And boy, I tell you what, though, we're not too far away from football season. As the media days, all the conferences do their media days starting next month. The SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten. So that's, to me, it's always been that's the unofficial kickoff of the season when we start seeing the different conference media days.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just when we think it's kind of the slower time in the summer, it's going to be, media days is coming and football won't be far behind. And man, there's a lot, and there's been a lot in this off season. So we felt it would be good to kind of put together a midsummer edition of the show. A lot to discuss. Like we said, football time in Tennessee is less than 70 days away, and we've got news to cover there. Even though it's summertime, Tennessee basketball has been hard at work onboarding what's almost an entirely new roster. And Rick Barnes sends 3 more players to the NBA draft, as Vol Hoops is without a doubt at the top of its game these days. So we're going to discuss that. And we'll be joined by a special guest. VFL and former Vol basketball player Mark Griffin will be with us to break that down. And Vol baseball's offseason is well underway, still very much in the discussion as well. The portal work by Josh Elander and the boys recently in particular has been highly productive, actually top tier level. So we'll be discussing that as well. But before all of that, a couple quick mentions. We'll give a shout out to our sponsor here in a moment. But also, if you're checking the show out on our YouTube channel, Rocky Top Insider, make sure that you like and subscribe. We always appreciate that support as we continue to grow our viewership here. Or you may be checking us out as a podcast, which is perfectly fine too. Best way to do that is, whatever platform you choose. We're available on all the platforms. Just make sure you download us, make us part of your regular rotation. We're in a little bit of a slow time of year right now, but man, soon enough, we'll be back to doing this show every single week, and we certainly appreciate your support there. We also appreciate the support of our sponsor. This episode of The Lowdown is brought to you by the Tate Insurance Group. If you are in the market for a great locally based insurance professional to help you with your car, your home, your business coverage, you don't need to look any further. It's the Tate Insurance Group, and as always, appreciate their partnership and support with The Lowdown. Topic A for today is Vol football. As we wrap up June, the long-running saga regarding Chaz Coleman finally comes to an end. After months of back and forth diagnosing why Chaz Coleman isn't an active participant in Tennessee's football offseason, Coleman was medically disqualified from the Vols roster this week. Additionally, I think a little bit of strategy here, Chris. Tennessee has elected to keep Coleman on scholarship as part of that medical dismissal. But that said, to me, it's doubtful that Chaz Coleman will be staying at Tennessee in the future. So let's talk about the impact of this move. Chris, while I don't think it's going to be a huge factor in the locker room since he was such a non-presence, I do think it does underscore and remind us of a pretty significant deficiency we have on the edge on defense.
Yeah, and what it means is that you're going to have some guys that haven't played as much or certainly haven't produced at this level to step up and play really good football. And listen, when you go out and you spend a lot of money on a player like that, $2 million was the price tag. Now, I think it needs to be pointed out here. And I know there's been a lot of different figures, Bob, that have been thrown out there about what he did or didn't get. Tennessee ended up paying him somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000. That's what they're out. They're not out the whole $2 million, but I've seen some figures at $5,000, $10,000, or $25,000. No, they end up having to pay a lot more than that. again, somewhere in the $200,000 to $250,000 range. But a guy that you felt like was going to be your main finisher off the edge this year, Chaz Coleman, is not going to be there. So you got to have some younger guys, some different guys step up, and that puts pressure on guys to be bigger producers than maybe you thought they were going to have to be. And when you have a guy like that, and even though he was not a huge production guy, remember he had a concussion late last year at Penn State, but he certainly had shown up on tape, and Tennessee was not the only school to go after him in the portal. That you had a feeling that if all went well, which it clearly didn't, that he was going to be your top guy. Now Tennessee's going to have to look for answers, and you're going to have to be better, even better inside. I think the best thing for Tennessee is they should be really good at linebacker. That should be one of the strengths of their team. I think receiver and linebacker next year, when you look at Tennessee's strength, but they got a lot of guys, and they may play more linebackers, Bob. They may have to. But certainly right there up the middle, which is another question mark for this team. That's where another transfer, another guy from Penn State, Xavier Gillum, they call him X, and I think they feel like they're going to really benefit greatly from his addition. He's going to have to be a man in there in the middle, and I think that will be key. But no, finding guys that can get to the quarterback, can rush the passer, and having some of those guys develop will be key this year.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and it's kind of interesting from the perspective that I think there's only one player that had double-digit college football experience in terms of games played. And again, that's Norman, the kid from Tulane. The one thing I think that we're going to have to, it's going to be interesting. I think Jim Knowles is going to be put to the test from the perspective of one area that we know we're flush with talent is the linebacker core, right? And that's not necessarily the edge rusher per se, but it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be any sort of schemes that happen through Jim Knowles and his team, coaching team, to see how aggressive they can be from the linebacker position too. I just think it's it's become more of a blank palette. And as much as I am a little bummed about the potential that Chaz Coleman brought to the table, we just have to remember it was just that. The fact of the matter is this guy, he played limited snaps at Penn State. Obviously, we spent this much money on him, so there was a lot of ambition that we had for this guy. I just feel like we know now we don't have him, so we're going to just have to put together the best options that we can with the existing unit we have. And the other thing I wanted to get your take on, Chris, is, as I watched this unfold last week, the announcement came out, and the national media started to glom onto it, and we're much closer to the situation, but all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of national media saying, boy, what is going on at Tennessee? And I think what they're doing is they're associating it with the situations in about the last 15 or 16 months, right? First it was Nico Iamaleava, then it was Boo Carter last summer, and now we have the situation with Chaz Coleman. My feelings there, totally different circumstances in each and every one of those things. And also, I don't know. I think Georgia winning cures a lot of your ills, but you can look at other programs where there is a lot of other activity, we'll call it, going on in behind the scenes and in the locker room that would trump what we're seeing with Tennessee. And I think people that are quick to rush to the judgment of, oh my God, Josh Heupel's lost control of the program. I don't think that's the case. There's been, a couple of situations where the character of the players are a little questionable. But some of that I'm afraid comes with the terrain of college sports, and specifically college football.
Well, it's a lot of it's too is just sort of where we are right now, and the portal giveth and it taketh away, and
right.
It's not an exact science, and you bring in guys sometimes that you hit home runs with. Jamon McCoy is a great example of that. And that was just bad luck for Tennessee. He had a great season, an All-America, All-SEC type season, blows his knee out training the next year, and Tennessee ends up, paying $1 million for a guy who just couldn't play. That's nobody's fault. It's not Tennessee's fault. That's not Jamon's fault. And I don't know where he was his last few weeks, whether he could have got on the field or not. but Tennessee wasn't going to push it. Excuse me, and he wasn't going to push it. In the Coleman case, I think the thing that probably is most frustrating, if you take 1,000 step back, 1,000 feet, Bob, is there are a lot of Penn State coaches on this roster, and I think that's, to me, the smartest thing Josh did when he hired Jim Knowles is let him bring his guys.
Right.
Well, these guys clearly were around Chaz Coleman last year. And I think it's a fair question. Should somebody have seen some red flags? This is your big ticket get out of the portal. And you talk to people and they say, no, not really. Now he had the concussion late last season at Penn State. Was there something after that things just didn't go right with him? But I think that's the frustration. You didn't just bring this guy to left field. You have guys on your staff that coached him, were around him, knew what his work ethic was or wasn't, and then bam, all of a sudden it just never clicked. I'll say this, Josh brought in Derek Owings as his strength coach for a reason. He wanted this to be a tougher, more physical, stronger physically and mentally football team. And nobody's around players more than the strength coach. I think early on, Derek Owings, sort of did a step back and said something's not right.
Yeah.
This Coleman situation, the way he was working, not going through spring practice. And I think there were issues over and above just football with Coleman. I think at the end of the day, I don't know how much football really meant to him. I don't know how important it was. And when you pay somebody to be your strength coach and you're paying him more money than any other strength coach in the country, and they pick up on that pretty quickly, which he did, then I always felt like this is where we would end up arriving, where we are right now, and that he would not be a part of this football team. So, yeah, I get the criticism. Some of it's probably warranted, because the Nico thing was a debacle. They ended up paying that kid, I don't know, $4 million, maybe more. Did you get $4 million in return from him? No. The Boo Carter situation, you give him more money to come back. He never bought in, never upheld his end of the bargain. But again, that's just part of where we are now. And I think Indiana's the model for everybody because they have spent money based on production,
yes,
not potential. And I think Tennessee now is trying its best to move a little bit closer to that. You're not going to see them spend as much money on high school kids as they have now. That's probably not counting the Georgia's kid down at Baylor School. They'll spend or are willing to spend more money that's ever been spent on a high school running back to get him. And I get why. That kid is a generational type talent. Granted, he's a running back, and Josh Heupel's had a lot of success with running backs no matter where they've come from. But that's one, playing football in your backyard, you got to get him. But I think when you look at sort of where their recruiting is right now in high school ranks, they're making a concerted effort to spend money and get guys out of the portal that can help them right away. And there are a lot of guys in this class this coming year that Tennessee are, like a Coleman, who is obviously the big ticket item, is not going to be there, but they're going to count on playing and being factors right away. I would point to two guys on defense. Metcalf at safety, I think, will be an excellent addition. He may end up being as good a safety as they've had in the last few years. And then Gillum, again, the kids all refer to him as X, right there in the middle of that defensive line, has a chance to be, I think, an all-SEC caliber interior defensive line.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about, while we've not been doing the show, the David Gabriel George's pursuit continues to intensify. It sounds like that kid's going to be announcing his decision latter part of July, so we still have about almost a month to wait, but still feels like Tennessee's situated very, very nicely in that battle, which by all accounts seems to be down between Tennessee and Ohio State at this point. So to your point, that's kind of a must get, I think, for Josh Heupel too.
I think optically it is. I think I'm not going to predict. I know everybody has predicted. You see national recruiting analysts. Some have picked Ohio State, some have picked Tennessee. Talking to people at both those schools, I think they both feel pretty well positioned. Ohio State just offered his roommate, a kid that came from him, I think, from Canada. Tennessee did a terrific job on his visit. They brought in Alvin Kamara, who by all accounts, was outstanding while the kid was on campus. Really good visit. They've gone out of their way to make him feel like, hey, we don't just want you, we need you. You're what we need to get back to being a championship caliber type player. And I think that's that's what a kid like that wants to hear. That thing's going to go down to the wire. Tennessee's package right now is more than what Ohio State's willing to pay him. Ohio State's going to pay him plenty, but again, I think Tennessee's prepared to pay him somewhere approaching $2 million, and there's incentives in there that he could hit on, Bob, that would, again, make him far and away the highest paid high school running back since we went down the NIL road. And some people look at that, and I'm sort of have mixed feelings, because I give Josh a lot of credit. He's been able to get 1,000-yard rushers out of just everybody. I mean, pretty much anybody he's brought in here. Dylan Sampson, Deshaun Bishop, who was a walk-on from Carnes and had a terrific year last year. Jalen Wright.
Yeah.
So having guys that have run the football for 1,000 yards hasn't been an issue for Tennessee. Now, is Georgia's enough of a difference maker? Are we going to come in and run for 1,800 or 2,000 yards? Maybe so. Everybody I talked to from the Ohio State perspective, from a Georgia perspective, from a Tennessee perspective, says this kid's as good as they've seen as a runner, at this point in his career. So, we'll see. But I'm one of those guys, if you ask me, and I know optically you got to get a guy like that in your state who's playing high school football.
Right.
Man, I'm hard pressed not to go spend more money on an edge rusher, on a left tackle, maybe on a big play receiver, split up a little bit more. But you know what the narrative will be, Bob, if they lose this kid to Ohio State. I mean, you know as well as anybody. You do a talk show every day.
Yeah.
How can you let Ohio State come in our backyard and get the best high school running back that's come through here in a long, long time? So I think certainly must get optically, but I also think it shows, if you get this kid, that Tennessee's on the right trajectory. Recruiting, bringing in the right players, and great players want to play around great players.
Yeah.
Whether you're a quarterback, whether you're an offensive tackle, whether you're a receiver. So getting guys like that just sometimes, or actually a lot of times, sort of manifests itself.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing to put a bow on the Chaz Coleman thing. All I could think about is sometimes I look at things and, if people feel like somehow the sky was falling with the Chaz Coleman scenario, I don't buy that, first of all. Second of all, I would also say that it could be worse. We were also making a pretty active pursuit of Brendan Sorsby, right? And if you can imagine, if Brendan Sorsby had chosen Tennessee, just imagine what kind of upheaval would there be with the fan base and everything else. Could be worse. And I mean, that poor kid, he's kind of put himself in that position. But I mean, the NFL has said, no supplemental draft for you. The Canadian Football League has said, no, we're not interested. I mean, he's got a long year ahead of him for sure.
Yeah. And, and that's a kid that Tennessee met with. That was a kid who was very much on their radar as they tried. They went out and swung pretty big for quarterbacks, Sorsby, Levitt, and they met with Sorsby and his family. And sometimes, you swing and miss, and it's a good swing and miss. And certainly in this case, I think of if had he ended up at Tennessee and not Texas Tech, what the fallout would be for the Vols right now.
It's true. Very true. All right, let's jump tracks to a little bit of basketball. It's kind of crazy. Here we are in almost July, and we're talking about basketball. The super team, maybe that's a little overstated, but it's quite a team that Rick Barnes has assembled. They have begun summer practices with the media included for the first time this past week. And reports on what we have seen. That you couldn't get video. They were wanting to hold off on video, but we know our Rocky Top Insider had a team there covering it. Lots of talent, Chris, is expected. I think, and I'd like to get your take because, I think you've had some access as well. And we'll talk with our guest about this in a few minutes, but what's the word on, I think the one thing we've seen is we've always had a true point guard, at least for a while. Zakai Ziegler was there for quite some time. And then last year, Jacoby Gillespie was the guy. This year, we've got Terrence Hill Jr., we have Day-Day Ames, we have Troy Henderson, who's recovering from injury. When Terrence joined you and I on this show, Boy, he was of the mind. He was point guard one. But I'm just curious if you're hearing anything on as far as early returns, because I've heard Terrence has been pretty effective there in those workouts. But that's going to be one I'm going to be watching pretty closely.
Well, and I think the plan all along was to have different guys that they could run the offense through. Terrence Hill, Day Ames, I think even Juke Harris. You go watch them play. They've run it some through him. And different guys, and not just one guy. The ball was in Jacoby Gillespie's hands 90% of the time last year. Now, sometimes they did run it through Nate situationally in the half court, but you're going to see different guys play that lead role and maybe have two guys sharing that at different times, even on the court at the same time. The thing that I saw when I was there was they do have a lot of different guys who can score, who can get their own shots. There's going to be it's a work in progress, so putting it all together and who does what best, who plays best together. These guys learning what they all like to do and what they do best, where they want the basketball. Rick. The best thing about Rick Barnes is he's going to push these guys, and he's already started to their level. He is going to challenge them every single possession, every single drill, every single practice, and there won't be any let up. And judging from what I saw when I was there. He's coaching them right now like they're in, the final week of the regular season. I mean, he's going at them, and if you've ever seen one of their practices, it's as intense as it gets. And the little things matter, and I think players like a Juke Harris, players like a Terrence Hill, a Day Ames. Now Lundblade's been a little bit sidelined. He hasn't played a lot. He's had a little bit back thing going on, so he didn't scrimmage the day I was there. But these guys come to Tennessee. They came to Tennessee. They know exactly what they're getting into. They want to be coached hard. They understand that it's been able to go from, being a B player, a B-plus player to an A player. It's going to help them get to the NBA. I mean, you look at Rick's track record with some of the kids who've come through here the last 3, 4, 5 years, and he's been able to do that. Kids understand that. Their moms, their agents, their dads, they see that. And I think when you watch them practice, that's the way Rick goes at them. And they want that. So I like, again, this is just me having seen just a little bit of what they've done to this point. But I like the way he's working to blend it all together. And I don't think we're going to know really for a while just exactly how long that's going to take to transition. As you pointed out, some guys have been injured. Henderson's still coming off the shoulder injury, shoulder surgery, I should say. Lundblade hasn't been out there a lot as he's had a little bit of a back situation. So getting all of them on the court at one time, I do think fans will see immediately a little bit of a difference in the way they run their offense. Number one, they're not going to have just two guys on the floor at once who can get their own shot. You're going to have a lot more than that. But you're also not going to have one guy, i.e. Jacoby Gillespie, who has the ball in his hands the whole time. You're going to have different guys that they run the offense through. And for a coach, certainly as veteran and as good as Rick Barnes is, that's a luxury.
I think another factor here that's worth noting is off the heels of that workout at the end of the week where coach and the team made themselves available to the media, Rick made mention that they do in fact have an extra roster spot, which was kind of news to us. And there's some gamesmanship to how that can happen, and it's all on the up and up. But I think a lot of fans were immediately thinking, wow, Dusty May just left Michigan to go to the NBA. What about a reunion with JP Estrella? I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I'd be very surprised if it happens. But I had Greg Polinsky, assistant coach Polinsky, on the radio with us on Thursday, and I addressed this question with him just in broad strokes, not necessarily who are you looking at, but my opinion is they have so many new pieces and parts right now that chemistry is going to be critical, right? It's going to be trying to establish that on-court chemistry. So whoever comes in has to be the right mix, and I think you can put some things together in terms of deficiency, if there is any, because scoring the ball doesn't look like it'll be a deficiency for this team, which is what JP Estrella's strength was. I think they need another rim protector, another big, and Coach Polinsky corroborated with that, saying, yeah, if we're looking for someone, it's probably going to be someone who can give us better depth and better strength inside.
Yeah, and I think Henderson's health is a key too there, Bob. They really could use him being healthy this season. And boy, if he could give them, I'm talking about as a guard, as a lead guard, as a point guard, if he could give them 8-10 minutes at least a game, that would be huge. But over and above that, and maybe even more so than that, I agree with Coach Polinsky, a guy that, you're going to get 4 more fouls out of, 5 more fouls that can protect the rim, that can be physical if you go up against, because they've got some height, but they don't have, other than Dwayne Brown, they don't have the big, bulky guys, that you're going to invariably go up against, as you go get deep in the tournament in the SEC. So, a guy that could hold his own down low. Just think about right now, if they had to go up against, he's not back, but the big kid from Michigan last year, the 7-footer.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough matchup for Tennessee right now. They had the bodies. Now they still got beat by 30 points, but they at least had the bodies. And some of the other big guys in the SEC they had to go up against, they're going to have to play differently, and they will play differently. They're going to have to draw those guys out. But I agree that, if you do go and get somebody else, and I don't think they're going to just reach. I know Rick Barnes well enough to know they're not going to reach. If it's somebody he thinks fits, somebody he thinks can play at a high level, and you nailed it, fits into what they do in, their culture and their locker room, then I do think it'll be a big.
Yeah, and again, that was the key operative word in that conversation I had with Coach Polinsky was fit. And why wouldn't it right now? I mean, things, we were riding the wave at Tennessee. We had 3 players go in the first or the only 2 rounds of the NBA draft. Also 3 former Tennessee players that, Cam Carr goes in the first round, and then Tobe Awaka and even BJ Edwards end up getting undrafted free agent agreements. So the Rick Barnes machine is moving at a pretty smooth clip right now. We just got to get to that Final Four. And I'd love to fan out on this discussion a little more, Chris. Our guest is waiting in the lobby for us, so I'm going to let you kind of take it away from there and do the intro.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. This next guest, Mark Griffin's been a friend of mine for, 40 years. We're in school together, Tennessee, 4-year letterman for the Vols, and a fixture in the community. Had a chance to be with Mark at the Greater Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame on Thursday. He was honored. And Mark, I'll let you take it from there, because I know we're here at the 10th anniversary of Pat Summitt's passing, and your honor was connected. Actually bears Pat's name. Why don't you take us through what you were honored for there on Thursday night? Congratulations, first of all. And, man, we really appreciate you joining the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it. Just a total surprise for me. Chris, you know me well. Bob, we just met. We run each other at Target every now and then. So we did that yesterday, Chris. So I got the call one day, and just someone had reached out and said that I received this honor for Pat. And just to hear my name to be attached to anything Pat Summitt does, I'm just honored, because as you mentioned earlier, Chris, we went to school together, and, I was a sophomore and a senior at UT in 87 and 89 when the Lady Vols won their first 2 championships. And the men's team was really close to the women's. Heck, a couple of our guys dated the girls on the team, and we traveled with them, and we stayed at the hotels with them. And we really got to spend time with the Lady Vol team as well as the coaching staff. So I have special stories along the years, one-on-one with Pat, a lot of encouragement from her. But getting back to this award, Chris, it was called the Pat Summitt Ignite Greatness Award. And I'll just kind of sum it up. It was for pretty much volunteering in the community and dedicated to helping others in various ways. And I always like to say I'm kind of a behind the scene guy. I don't try to be out in front of the troops to get notoriety, and I think that's what a lot that Pat taught was, doing the right thing when no one's looking. So I'm just really honored to be able to go on stage the other night. And what I even enjoyed even more is running into people like Joan Cronin and Rick Russo and many other people, Chris, that you and I talked about earlier today in the Knoxville community that's just really helped build East Tennessee in various ways. And I'm just glad to do a little part that I can, because you know what, at the end of the day, we're all given an opportunity, and that's all we deserve. And that's what I teach kids that I mentor is all you deserve is an opportunity. Just take advantage of it.
Yeah. Mark's humble. Bob, I've been to a couple of his gatherings where kids have come through there. He has mentored, and Mark's spent a ton of time coaching AAU basketball. Keon Johnson was one of his guys back in the day, and has done that right on through, going back years and years. And I think that when anybody who's was ever around Pat knew how much she loved being around young people and developing them, not just as basketball players, but off the court. I mean, the girls who played for her, and Mark and I were in school with a lot of them, the Bridget Gordons of the world, Melissa McCrae, sadly, who's no longer with us, Carla Douglas. I mean, you could sit for hours with those girls, and they tell you these awesome stories about Pat over and above basketball and what they meant to them in their lives. And I think that's, as much as all the championships she won, she was a great ambassador for the university. But the impact she had on all the players that came through there, on their lives, they will tell you that probably is the thing they remember most about her.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry if you want to say something.
No, you're good, man.
I was just going to say, one of the things that, people can talk about her record and they can talk about her championships, but what people don't talk about as much in basketball, and I think it's a lost art, was she would say this was her classroom. She was a teacher. One of her phrases that I'll paraphrase, but the fans enjoy the games. She enjoyed the practices because that was her classroom. And you look at a lot of coaches today in the industry, different reasons to get into industry. I hope that their number one goal for the ones who are influencing others is to teach people not only game skills, but life skills. Because I can tell you, and Chris, some of these, even college coaches, coaches will get up there and sound like politicians to the media and what they're doing for the kids, and they never spend any time with them off the court. And you guys were mentioning Rick Barnes, and one of the things that really impressed me during the recruiting process of Keon was how often the staff mentioned that he spends more time with his players off the court than any coach. And that is evidence. And it was a big shocker to me, because when a lot of us came through college ball, like myself, we never want to spend time with our head coach. I mean, Chris could tell you that stories we've heard, and you'd see Coach DeVoe, you're like, he may not even speak to you. And it was just the way it was. And I don't know if I really wanted to speak to him just because I was afraid of the guy. I mean, I respected him so much more when the game was over, taught me about life. But they didn't have a lot of players did not have that relationship with their coach. And they called her Pat. And I was just blown away. It was when I first heard, like, we got to do this, for Pat. I'm like, who's Pat? I thought it was like a friend or something. Like, no, Pat Summit. And I'm like, y'all call her Pat. And everyone called her Pat. And that's the way she was. And just the 10th, I mean, this is the 10th anniversary today when she passed. So it was really, really special for me and for the ones that, at my tables, and glad Tony White can come and just to have Chris there and other George Plaster from Nashville come and others. It was just a real pleasure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. What a cool honor too. So it's got to be a proud moment for you, Mark. Let's talk about when you joined us. We were talking a little about the program in its current state. What's going on with Coach Barnes, and I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to in the last month or so that have been of the mind of, man, I love football, but I want to fast forward to this basketball season. I mean, it's crazy it's crazy. Now, me coming from the state of Indiana originally,
Yeah.
I feel that, man. I mean, that's what I'm used to. But, football's going to have it's going to have its following and everything else. But it really is a testimony to what's going on with that basketball program. And I know, the Final Four is kind of the missing piece to the puzzle right now.
Sure.
But, man, these sure feel like the good old days for Tennessee basketball.
Yeah, I think all chips are in. I mean, Chris, you had mentioned to me, you had been to practice. I have not yet got over there. I cannot wait to go to see the new guys, because this is every season. You got a whole new roster. And I think these press guides are going to have Danny White will be happy. It'll be record sales for media guides, because every year you have a whole new team. What really blows my mind, and people are like, oh, is he going to get away from defense? No, he's going to stick with defense. He's just going to make these guys play better defense. But to bring in the point production that he has, and you guys may have the numbers. I think the number I heard was like 87 points combined for all the players that are coming in. And then, of course, now some of your naysayers are like, well, who's going to get the ball? Not enough players are going to be happy. I'm like, that's pretty good position when you got scores, because, the one thing that's hurt some of his teams, Coach Barnes' teams in the past, is that guy that at the end of the game, your go-to guy, like a Dalton Connect. I mean, and have another Dalton Connect right there next to him, because scouting reports, you can stop one shooter. You can. Or you can limit one shooter. You can't limit three. And then you can't limit two that come off the bench when the others are tired or you're in foul trouble, and you can look down that bench and go, I got options. And I heard you, Chris, mention earlier about the inside game. I just think it's going to be a faster game. Will there be defensive matchup issues? There obviously there will be some matchup issues, but you're going to have that in every contest. You're going to have a deficit that you're going to have to work around. But with that said, if you have, let's say, a big guy like you talked about the Ade kid, Mara, where you make up with that, you get up down the court faster. Big guys can't keep up. I mean, look, I was thinking about old school days. If you remember, guys, I think it was 87 Louisville team, or maybe 83, and Derek Smith was their center. I think he was 6'7". Everybody's like, oh, Denny Crum's team will never win. They're too small. Well, they got up down the court faster than everybody. It was just a new way to coach with athletes. And then next thing you know, everybody's going to athletes now. So I think his team will adjust, and they're going to get coached, and it's going to be exciting. But on the same side, Bob, I will always look forward to football. I don't care. Yeah. I survived the 89 team. I think there were 88, 89, 0-6 started out, and still at the games. One reason I myself came here, and maybe even you, Chris, was Tennessee football was the interest for me initially. Always will look forward to football season regardless.
One thing I wanted to add too about this was interesting right before you joined us, Mark, on my radio show, I had assistant coach Greg Polinsky on with us on Thursday, and he brought up a statistic that I guess we kind of knew, but he underscored it again. And it speaks to, I trust in Coach Barnes, but chemistry is going to be key, right? Because he said, I think out of those 7 or 8 transfers, 5 of those guys were leading scorers on their teams. And then that's not to mention if some of these high school guys, Ralph Scott, Manny Green, those guys get some run, those guys were leading scorers on their team too. So there is that, there's that little bit of a lingering point of, oh boy, is there enough balls to go around? But I trust Rick on this stuff, man.
Well, it's a good problem, and Chris can attest. Go back to the Kevin O'Dill days. They're scoring 29 points a game. How fun were games then for the fans that are listening in tonight? We'll take it. Or you have a problem. Who's going to get the ball? Believe me, right, Chris?
Well, listen. These guys all want to be successful. And if you got guys that can stick it from the corner, or guys that can make things happen. You're going to get better shots. Tyler Lundblade's going to get better shots because he's got a guy like Terrence Hill and Day-Day Ames who can create. Juke Harris can get better shots because you know what? You can't come off Lundblade. You can't come off of Terrence Hill and double him. And I mean, it's not to diss anybody. Those kids played their roles. I mean, they were phenomenal in the way they played their roles last year. For that team to get to the final 8 and be as limited as they were offensively. So this is not dissing anybody on that team, but there were never hardly any times where Tennessee had more than 2 guys on the court at the same time who could score the basketball consistently, who could get their own shot, who could score. And how many times did we see the clock tick 7, 6, 5, and Jacoby's got the ball in his hands?
Yeah,
and he had to make something happen. So this will be a lot different from that. I'm not saying that they're going to win 10 more games. That I'm predicting they're going to go to the Final Four, but this team will be constructed and wired differently. They'll have more guys that can score. And if you scored 17 points last year a game, maybe you score 11 or 12 this year. But you know what? Maybe you shoot a better percentage. Maybe you get better shots. You get better looks because you got more guys around you who can score. And I think all these kids understood that. And I can promise you, when Rick went out to recruit these guys and talked to them and gave him his vision for what he wanted this team to look like, that was discussed ad nauseum.
Oh, no doubt.
We don't need you. We may not need you to score 17. Right? What did Juke average? 21 points a game last year, something like that? They're probably not going to need him to score 21 points a game this year.
Yeah.
They may not need Day Ames to score 17 points a game this year. But you know what? You're going to get better shots. You're going to get more productive looks. And when teams look at you, i.e. NBA teams, your tape's going to look better.
Yeah. And players will gladly give up points to gain success as far as victories and going farther in the tournament. Gladly. I mean, I would gladly give up my 8.7 points a game to score 4 if we could get past the first round NCAA tournament. So
I thought we saw some of that with Michigan, quite honestly, this year. I mean, because they had a bunch of stars, obviously, and it was a different guy a lot of times. I mean, Trey McKinney was huge for them in the Final Four, and he wasn't even a starter. So
look at that Houston team to beat Tennessee 2 years ago.
Yeah.
In Indy. I mean, that team, there were a lot of guys that could score in different ways for that Houston team. And even the UConn team.
Yeah.
Those early UConn teams had different guys. And a lot of those guys were portal guys. The freshman, obviously, Castle was so good that year. But you just got to have – in Rick's team, Mark's right, they're always going to play defense. That is a non-negotiable deal.
Yeah.
If you're going to play for him. But you see the teams now, and Rick, he'll tell you, age is just a number. And he's coached a long time and he's getting up there in age. Now that's a wink, wink joke. So I hope he sees this, but he's afraid to adapt. And he knows he stood there on the sideline last year and watched that Michigan team take apart Tennessee because they had so many options to score. They could have played that game 20 times last year and Michigan would have won all 20 times.
No doubt.
With the way those teams were constructed. So this isn't Rick's first rodeo. He understands. And he said this. He said it to us. He said it publicly. We had to have more guys that can score. So we're going to find out how quickly he blends his team. They may not be playing their best basketball in November, December. I don't think it really matters.
No.
That they're all clicking together, roles defined by the time they get to March.
What it says too, guys, is as y'all know, coaches are stubborn. Older you get, more stubborn you get.
Sure.
You have a philosophy, a standard, the way you run a program, the sets you run. You may tweak a little bit here and there, but not a lot. I mean, you can name programs. Houston, defense, first thing come to mind. They're going to play defense, and they're going to have some good shooters, but they're going to always be a great defensive team. Where they're going to lose, they don't have enough shot makers. And we can go on and on about coaches with that philosophy. What I really admire about Coach Barnes and his staff is, yes, they're known for the defense, but to go this direction so dramatically. I mean, I was blown away when I kept hearing, oh, this person's maybe looking, this person's looking, they're a great scorer, this person can do that. And I was like, oh, I'll just be glad we get 2. And then I'd get like 7. And I'm like, what a great problem to have.
Yeah, no doubt. One last player I want to hit you up with, Mark, is because I'm excited based on what I've been hearing and seeing. And it's one of the few guys that stuck around, and that's Dwayne Brown, because it sounds like Rick is very bullish on this kid. And then when I talked with GP, Coach Polinsky, he made a comment of a lot of the work with Dwayne Brown was done for them when he first got there because of the school he played at in Hoover. He said that coach runs such a tight program. They're up at 5 a.m. practicing, stretching, and then practicing by 6. And it's non-negotiable. It's like if you're going to be on that team, that's how it's going to be. And it was just interesting hearing that perspective, that guy, it sounds like he's the makeup of a Rick Barnes player right off the bat.
Sure. I remember seeing Dwayne Brown, and every summer I travel to watch the circuit, which is either Nike, Adidas that I go to. I don't go to Under Armour. That's another one. But I saw him play for the Florida Rebels when he was in high school. And at the time, he was probably ranked 115-ish, which I don't really care about rankings, but I do follow him. And I watched him play, and I was like, he's good. I mean, he could be a role player maybe by his junior year is what I kept thinking. And I thought, he's got good feet. And then what else I noticed, I'm like, his length is incredible. And then when I heard Coach Barnes speak the Round Ball Club this last fall, and he mentioned he's got the longest length of any player on the team. I don't know what the number was, 7'1" or whatever. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But when I went and watched practices in the fall, I was really surprised of his work ethic and that he didn't back down to Felix or any of those guys. Great attitude, great body language. And I thought, like you said, Bob, you can tell he was really coached on discipline, because he wasn't acting like an incoming freshman with all the accolades. He just came in, was workhorse. And then he mentioned to me, even in that practice, he said, it's going to be hard to keep him off the bench, because if I'm not mistaken, Chris, you may know this from your discussions. I thought maybe they were looking to redshirt him, if I'm not mistaken, or they definitely weren't expecting him to make an impact his freshman year like he did.
No, I mean, I think he was, and Rick said it, and he was as improved from the time he got on campus to they got into the season as much as anybody. And I think he is the guy. When you look, not just at Tennessee, when you look in the SEC next year, guys going for their true freshman year to their sophomore year, he has a chance to be among the top, I think, 4 or 5 guys that make the biggest jump. He'll be a big factor. I think they're going to need him to score more, to be a guy that can defend in the post. But no, and they've done a nice job of going and finding those guys like that who fit what they're doing. But no, Mark, before we let you go, can you give us your best DeVoe impersonation? Now, this is a family show, so you can't use the language.
Let me turn that over back to you, Chris. You're the one that does the DeVoe impression. I'm the wrong person. I can tell you some DeVoe stories now.
Come on, Mark. Move your feet. Ball you man, Mark. Ball you man. Move your feet. Come on. Let's
go. I don't know if –
Come on, guys. Come on.
This is a PG show, so and anybody that knows Coach DeVoe, he's not PG. I'll tell you one funny one, though. I remember we're playing at one game, probably getting beat, and the assistant coach was Jack Ferdig, and he'd always lean in his chair. Little bitty guy's 5'4", and he's chewing gum, and you could hear him all the way down the bench. And of course, DeVoe's just getting pissed, and then he went, his had a little charade on Coach Ferdig, yelling at him to quit chewing your gum, Jack. And the whole focus came to gum. He wasn't even talking about defense or running or plays. It was all to the assistant coach. That's one of the clean ones I can tell you guys.
Bob, the players, Mark and Tony White, Fred Jenkins, Anthony Richardson, those guys, the late Dyron Nix, used to tell, they would always say they knew practices were always hell. It really was like, you had to put your hard hats on, you need knee pads, elbow guards, because you're diving for loose balls. Back when they first started, Mark, did you ever play on the tartan surface? Did you guys?
2 years.
That awful tartan surface, they're just ripping knees and ankles to pieces. And all the guys would say, and we'll end it here because I could tell DeVoe stories forever, that they always knew the practice was going to be especially hellish when he'd show up, maybe hadn't washed his hair in a day and a half, and his hair was all matted down, and he'd walk out there, and it just was from the second they stepped on the floor. And back then, remember, you didn't have a lot of time limits of how long
No, we didn't have any.
You could practice forever. And the DeVoe would come out there with his hair matted down, and
we knew we were in trouble,
dropping F-bombs left and right. And it just, and I would be coming back from class sometimes, and I would, you could go into Stokely back then. I'd walk through and I'd sit there and watch it for 15 minutes, and I'd shake my head, having played high school basketball. And so I'm going back to the dorm. I'm going to take a nap, and I'm going to go to the Hyper and play some real basketball. These guys, there ain't no way in hell I'm going to go through what these guys are having to go through. So those were the good old days. I just remember the ball you man, Griff. Come on now. Come on. Move your feet. Move your feet.
It's funny because the voice has never left my head, which is kind of sad, but it does it. One thing for you guys, I saw Chris in the background there. I know she have a Larry Bird jersey.
Come on, guys.
And Bob, you're Indiana guy. Chris, I looked this up in my room just for you. Larry Bird figurine from '87.
Wow, that's impressive.
Griff,
it may not match what do you have back there, but I don't keep anything these days of relics or any. I don't have programs, anything from when I played. But I kept this, my idol, and I did wear 33, Bob, because of Larry Bird.
I have one autograph. I own one autograph. And it's my people always said, "Did you get out?" No, I don't get autographs. The only autograph I own is the autographed Larry Bird jersey behind me. So that should tell you something. The hick from French Lick.
Yeah. And can I just say, Chris probably knows this, Griff, you don't. I went to Indiana State University.
Oh,
and except anytime I bring it up, everybody's like, "Oh my God, Larry Bird." And it's like, yeah, I missed it by a year. I wasn't there to see it firsthand.
Your timing stinks, Bob.
Yeah, it did. But man, I love watching that guy play on TV, though. It was something else. It was special.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Mark, man, thank you a bunch. We could do this all day. It's been great. Congratulations to you. Thanks for all the work you do and have done and will continue to do in the community. And we'll catch up when we get closer to the basketball season. But Bob's
anytime.
Right.
Appreciate you guys, what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you, Mark.
Thank you, Griff. All right, let me get him off here, and we are back. That was fun, man.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. All right, let's I got to give a little shout out to our sponsor. Wanted to talk for a moment about Tate Insurance Group. They are your local insurance team. They are proud to call East Tennessee home, just like our Vols, just like the ones we've been talking about. They know what it takes to overcome obstacles, to give their all. They probably move their feet, and they show true volunteer spirit for the community. Whether it's home, auto, business coverage, they provide personal service that you can count on. And again, they care about what you care about, because this is where they live too. This is a great, great agency. It's the Tate Insurance Group. They're trusted, they're local, always in your corner, right here at home. If you want to learn more, you can contact them by phone, area code 865-862-8233. You can also go to the website to learn more about the products and tools that they offer at TateInsuranceGroup.com. Again, 865-862-8233, or go online, TateInsuranceGroup.com. And we always appreciate their support on this show. All right, time to talk a little baseball as we wind down the show here, because that's why we came back here in the middle of the summer. There is so much going on in all sports. We've talked football, we've talked basketball. Let's talk baseball. Nearly 1 month since Tennessee ended their season, and off of the heels of a big week just last week, the Vols are white hot in their roster rebuild for 2027. Chris, they're currently standing at 8 new players joining the team from the portal, with a 9th unofficially committed. It started a couple weeks back with two-way guy Braden Kersey coming from Mercer, which was a very coveted asset. Then Brody Trust-Clare, the pitcher, came on board. And then it just went on from there. We hit kind of a dry spell for about a week where we had a lot of visitors, but not necessarily commits. But man, between the last, I'd say 2 weeks, Wyatt Hanoyan from Air Force, an infielder, really, really good freshman All-American, second team. UC Irvine pitcher Ricky Ojeda. And then this past week, Jake McCoy from South Carolina, Parker Detmers from Louisville, both pitchers. Shortstop Travis Sanders from Baylor, who has capability to play third base. Outfielder Andrew Duncan from Wright State. And like I said, we're still waiting on an official commitment from Cal Baptist shortstop Chris Ramirez, although all indicators are that he intends to commit to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, that rally has elevated Tennessee to the top of the rankings. Matter of fact, 64 Analytics currently ranks the Vols' incoming class from the transfer portal as the very best in the country, edging out all SEC teams, most notably Arkansas. But man, a lot of, you pair that transfer class with the players that the Vols already retained and some good freshmen that could be coming. There are already pundits who have Tennessee showing up in their way too early Omaha 8 projections. I mean, this could be interesting. Of course, the Major League Baseball draft still has to happen, and there's a lot of players that I've mentioned and some of those freshmen coming in that are probably going to show up in the draft. But feels like Josh Elander has kind of taken the reins on what he wants to do here.
Josh said right after they lost, went 0 for 2 in Chapel Hill in the regional, he said, we got some things we're going to fix, and I'm going to fix them. Well, the first thing he did is he made a change with his pitching coach. Brought in the East Carolina pitching coach and a guy that's, across the country, they will tell you he's as good as it gets. And I think when you look at who he's brought in the portal, some of the guys you mentioned, it's they really needed to address, I think, they needed some more punch in their offensive. You go back and look, they really hit pretty well down the stretch in the regular season, but when they needed to in the postseason, they just didn't do it. They just did not get key hits. And on the mound, I really like what they did on the mound. And they've got some guys coming back pitching-wise that I think are going to be, stalwarts for them. But, Chris, you mentioned Chris Ramirez, the shortstop. He probably was as coveted a shortstop in the portal as there was. He's a guy that can do it defensively, offensively, got a great bat, guy that makes contact, just the kind of guy you want at the plate with people on base. And at times, hitting with people on base was Tennessee's bugaboo. But I think in the infield, you talk about Ramirez, you talk about Sanders. I mean, Sanders is a guy that could play third base, could play second base. I really like what they did. And you look at there's a couple guys, and you said this, that they're going to have to sort of sweat it out come draft day, Bob. But you look at some of the arms. I mean, I think a guy like Jake McCoy, he's pitched for 2 or 3 years in the SEC. Probably has as much upside as any of their committed arms, so getting a guy like that. And Kersey's another guy that college, you see this some, guys that are legitimate two-way players. And you're talking about a guy who hit 20-plus home runs.
Right.
He can throw, he'll touch 90, 40, 95 miles per hour on the mound. So a guy like that, man, gives you all sorts of versatility as a coach, where to play guys, who to play, late in games, you want to bring him out of the pen to pitch. So, I mean, again, I like what he's done. I think there's other guys, as I look down their list here, that, Ricky Ojeda, is it Ojeda? Ojeda? How do you pronounce his last name?
Ojeda.
Yeah. He's pitched, I think I read this, he's pitched over 200 career innings, so he's done it. He's been there. So I like I like Trosclair. They got, I think they beat out LSU for him.
They did, yeah.
So, and then the kid from Air Force, I think could play third base. He could play third base. I think he could play second base. So I think Josh brought in some guys that can play different positions, so he can sort of mix and match, and find some guys that, get his best combo on the field. So I give him credit. This team, I thought at one point last year was wobbling. The first part of the season, they were getting beat on walk-offs. Vanderbilt beat them 3 straight walk-off games. They had some games early in the year, early in the conference season, that they let get away from them, and they were scuffling pretty good. And
yeah,
to Josh and that staff's credit, they were able to pick themselves back up off the ground and won their last 3 series. I mean, they beat Oklahoma. The last series of the regular season, they won the series. They won the series against Texas. They won the series against Alabama. And they really sort of played really good baseball down the stretch. They just didn't get it done in the postseason. But even with that, as all really good coaches do, Josh is only in his first year.
Yeah.
You step back, you self-scout yourself first, which he did. You self-scout, your staff, you self-scout your team. And I think he's done it, until we see how it all pans out, the proof's going to be in the pudding. He's done as good a job of that as he possibly could.
Yeah. That Wyatt Hanoyan kid, I had the good fortune to get to interview him on the radio earlier in the week. He's impressive, man. And the other thing is he's a big personality, which I think was one of the links we didn't have as much of this season, and some of that's I think it's endemic with a Tony Vitello team, but having a little of that fire kind of present on the field, something tells me Wyatt Hanoyan might be one of those guys. And I think that's awesome. And the other thing, you talked about us beating Oklahoma, man. I watched that College World Series championship, and they're the testimony of you get hot at the right time and anything can happen. But it feels like some of the players we've got, these guys that he's bringing in, Duncan had, I think, 6 home runs. Hanoyan had 7. Travis Sanders, 8. These are not major power players, but we do have some big bats that we retained. And if you looked at what Oklahoma did to win the College World Series, it was kind of a mix. I mean, they hit their share of home runs, but it was a lot about getting guys on base and making things happen. And I just could see maybe there's some ingredients like that. Maybe Josh has taken that approach with this team. He wants to be able to hit you from all angles.
Well, I mean, the big phrase now in baseball is bat to ball. A guy really puts the bat to ball.
Yeah.
And that's something that at key times last year, Tennessee didn't do as well. Well, if you talk to people who know a whole lot more about it than I do, guys like Hanoyan, Ramirez, Sanders, those guys are the epitome of putting the bat to the ball. They get the bat on the ball. I mean, Sanders played in 80. I think he had 80 hits in 45 games last year. And I think we remember that championship team in 24 and some of those teams before, that Tennessee played what I call monster ball. They're hitting all these home runs. And I think they're still going to hit some home runs. But to me, and you're right, you better be able to produce when guys are on first and second or second and third, or you get the first 2 guys on in an inning, not just scratching 1 run out, but scratching 2, 3, 4 runs. And I think when you've got guys that are contact guys and can hit the baseball and can hit with 2 strikes, and I think a guy like I think Blaine Brown, can he improve? Because clearly he's got a ton of talent. He was a big get in the portal last year. You go back to Blake Burke. Blake Burke's second year, he could not hit his weight. He couldn't hit anything off speed. And people, off speed, change up, curveballed him to death. He went and worked his butt off and came back and was a professional hitter his third year. Maybe Blaine Brown has that type of jump from last year to this year. He made a good decision to stay. And, he's got some competition too. He knows that, for him to be out there every day, he's going to have to improve and hit the ball better. But clearly he's got the ability. It's just what he does. And I think a guy like Levi Clark, I mean, I bet you we see his best baseball, his most consistent baseball next year. And he's your prototypical power hitter.
Yeah.
Stone Lawless, another guy that I think you'll see his power numbers go up. So, it's going to be a good mix of guys. And much like the basketball team, faces change, a lot of new players. We'll see how they blend it together, Bob.
No doubt. Well, listen, that does it for this week. As always, we appreciate you giving us a watch or listen. A reminder to hit that like and subscribe button for the show if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, or download our podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Also, thanks to our guest for today, Mark Griffin. It was really fun hearing from Griff, talking ball with him. As always, many thanks to our fantastic sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. Now, you'll probably see Chris and I maybe once more this summer before we get back into our weekly routine as we close in on football season. But in the meantime, if it's happening on Rocky Top, you can count on RTI covering it all for you. So keep it locked in on RockyTopInsider.com and all of our socials for the best Tennessee Vol coverage anywhere. CeeLo, great getting back on the air with you, my friend. It's always fun. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of the summer. I'm sure we'll be talking here and there.
Yeah, same here, Bob. A lot of fun anytime we get to, as they say in the younger generations, chop it up. But I look forward to doing it down the road. And you have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll catch up later on.
Absolutely. Again, thanks to all of you out there watching and listening, making us part of your routine. We've gotten some feedback in the summer from some people Chris and I see in public, and it tells us you're paying attention to the show, and that makes us happy. So thank you for that. And remember, football's not that far away, and we can't wait. It'll be here before you know it. So keep the faith. Until then, enjoy your summer. Have a great 4th of July holiday, and we'll look forward to joining you again next time on the RTI Lowdown.